I won't give rides to strangers. Please come walk. Grinning, Karen, my eldest son's wife, twirls the car keys on her finger as if to flaunt them in front of me. I organize my thoughts about the current situation and feel a mild sense of despair. I wonder how long it will take to get to my eldest son and his wife's new home from here. Following my son's job transfer, they decided to move to the countryside and built a modest house in a residential area a bit far from here. Unfortunately, public transportation only reaches up to a point considerably far from their new home. With a distorted smile of enjoyment, Karen quickly returns to where my son Ryan and my husband, leaving me behind. Oh well, I sighed and took out my mobile phone to search for a bus that could get me as close as possible to my destination. After some research, it seems there is a bus from here, which might reduce the walking distance somewhat. Pulling myself together, I was looking for the bus stop and startled when someone taps my shoulder. Wait, why are you? Surprised by the person I saw upon turning around, I was at a loss for words. My name is Sarah. I am 72 years old this year. Despite my age, thanks to the environment I grew up in, my lower body strength is still strong. After graduating from school, I immediately married into my husband's family, who were business owners, and I worked there. My job involved delivering goods to a store beyond the mountain on foot, so I would travel back and forth across the mountain every day. Taking over for my husband who used to make deliveries by car, and his mother who manned the store. Even after my son Ryan was born, I continued this routine, carrying him on my back. Now, Ryan is grown and seems to be living a fairly happy life with his marriage. I still remember vividly when my eldest son got married. I was surprised when he brought Karen home, nervous yet serious about wanting to marry her, but of course, I gave my consent due to his earnestness. However, Karen seems to dislike me and takes every opportunity to harass me behind the backs of my husband and son. Ryan's kind-hearted nature, extending his care not only to his wife but also to me and my husband, might be something Karen disapproves of. Initially, I kept silent and endured it because I respected Ryan chose her as his partner, but lately, the harassment from Karen has become particularly intense, and I've truly had enough. During one New Year's holiday, I was eagerly anticipating reuniting with them after a long time. I thought that, despite Karen's tendency to harass me, she wouldn't do anything during the New Year's visit when my husband and Ryan were around. However, as soon as Karen arrived for the visit, she said to me, "I want to express my gratitude with a home-cooked meal. So could I please use the kitchen?" I couldn't rudely refuse, so I let her have it. While waiting and occasionally checking to see what would happen next, a sudden explosion came from the kitchen. Rushing in to see what had happened, we found a disaster, a microwave in ruins and milk spilling onto the floor from a fallen carton. Additionally, in her shock, she dropped and then forcefully stepped on a ketchup bottle, causing it to splatter all over, leaving the kitchen in complete disarray. Karen, sitting amidst the chaos and crying about wanting to be helpful, was gently consoled by my husband and Ryan, who could only offer wry smiles. As Ryan was persuading Karen to go to the bathroom, she turned around and gave me a sly smile. My husband had already started cleaning up and didn't see Karen's malicious face. Despite realizing this was another of Karen's harassments, I couldn't express my anger in the situation and ended up silently cleaning up with my husband. Months later, with a job transfer impending, Ryan decided to build a house, anticipating the move. He was originally working at the New York headquarters but was assigned to a branch office, prompting the move. The branch was close to his parents' house, in other words where we lived, so we considered the possibility of living together. But Karen strongly opposed the idea, leading to the decision to construct their own residence. There was a bit of a fuss with Karen over the down payment needed for the new house. This was because Ryan had insisted they would manage the finances for their new home by themselves. While that was a generous thought, I couldn't help but wonder where Karen, a stay-at-home wife, would find the money for it, even if Ryan was working. The day after hearing this from Ryan, I received a call from Karen. She said, "Since you're so thrifty, you must have a lot of money saved up, right? Please give me the money to build our new house." When I pointed out that this was different from what I had been told, she retorted, "Well, I want to look good in front of Ryan too. I've already told him I'd be the one providing the money, so please give it to me as soon as possible." Although I wondered why I should give Karen the money, I decided to do so for Ryan's sake and kept silent. However, after that, I never received a word of thanks from Karen, even as the new house was completed. As the end of the fiscal year approached and Ryan's transfer was officially confirmed, we received an invitation from the newly relocated couple to come and see their new home. I will send the address to your mobile phone, and don't forget to bring a gift. Karen said so before abruptly hanging up. While I'm not fond of Karen's behavior, it's a house I helped fund. I'm definitely interested in seeing it. I decided to visit my son and his wife's new house with my husband the following weekend. On the day of the visit, we arrived at the airport in the region where the new house was located, and Ryan and Karen were there to pick us up. Originally, we planned to go directly to the new house, but Ryan thoughtfully came to pick us up by car. After reuniting with Ryan and Karen, we decided to have lunch at a food court in the station. Since it had been a while since we last met during New Year's, Karen seemed to behave herself in front of my husband and Ryan, which was a relief. Before we set off for the new house, I decided to use the bathroom. Due to it being lunchtime, everywhere was crowded. After finally using the bathroom and washing my hands, someone suddenly spoke to me from behind. "Aren't you done here yet? Ryan told me to check you in because you're taking too long." Karen said this with a displeased look, glaring at me. Being scolded in front of so many people, I felt intimidated. Pleased with my reaction, Karen smirked. "Are you still using that dirty handkerchief? It's time to throw it away." Seeing the handkerchief in my hand, Karen scoffed and, pointing at the installed jet towel, continued. "Who carries handkerchiefs these days? You don't know about jet towels? What a penny pincher." Our loud conversation attracted unwelcome attention from other patrons. Seeing me shrink away even more, Karen, getting carried away, spoke up. "I don't want to be associated with someone so frugal. I'd almost prefer to pretend we're strangers, and I won't give rides to strangers. Please come walk." Grinning, Karen twirls the car keys on her finger as if to flaunt them in front of me. Realizing what she meant, I felt a slight sense of despair as I organized my thoughts about the situation. I wondered how far it was to Ryan and Karen's new house from here. They had moved to a simple residential area far from here. Unfortunately, public transportation didn't reach close to their new house. "Oh, I already have the gifts you brought today. Thanks anyway." Saying this with a twisted smile, Karen quickly returns to Ryan and my husband, leaving me behind. After Karen left and things around settled down again. "Oh well." I sighed and took out my mobile phone to search for a bus that could get me as close as possible to my destination. After some research, it seems there is a bus from here, which might reduce the walking distance somewhat. Pulling myself together, I was looking for the bus stop and startled when someone taps my shoulder. "Wait, why are you?" Surprised by the person I saw upon turning around, I was at a loss for words. "So, you were here. I've been looking for you." Seeing my husband's face, I felt the tension and anxiety that had gripped me begin to unwind. As we headed to the bus stop, I shared everything with my husband, who, despite his skepticism, followed along. I told him about the harassment from Karen and the finances for the new house. Including today's events, I poured out everything as we rode the bus together. Throughout my account, my husband listened in silence, his frown deepening as the story unfolded. After I finished talking, he simply stated that he would walk with me and remained silent thereafter. Upon hearing this, I urged him multiple times to turn back, but my husband stubbornly refused to do so. Eventually, when the bus reached its final stop, everyone disembarked at once. Now, the real journey began. The distance to Ryan and Karen's new house was considerable, with no public transportation available. Entering the destination into my map app, I saw it would take over 3 hours to arrive. Let's go. Unsure of which direction to go, I was still staring at the map app, but my husband, after stating his intent, started walking without hesitation. I followed him, periodically checking the map app to make sure we weren't going the wrong way. However, the direction my husband started walking in was not wrong at all. After walking for a bit, my phone rang. When I checked the screen, it was a call from Karen, and while I didn't want to answer it, I looked at my husband for help. Noticing my gaze, my husband peered at my phone. With a displeased look, he took my phone and slipped it into his pocket before starting to walk ahead. Realizing I was standing there, gaping in surprise, he looked back and took my hand without a word, and we started walking again. I was surprised by the suddenness of it all and had a lot to say, but those thoughts vanished. My husband continued walking in silence, firmly holding my hand. He never hesitated. Despite several forks in the road, he chose our path without any hesitation. I followed him in silence. As we walked, I could periodically hear my phone vibrating. Eventually, annoyed by the persistence, I pulled on my husband's hand and suggested, "It must be Karen calling. Maybe you should answer it, she's being quite persistent, isn't she?" When I said that, my husband stopped and turned to face me. "Just ignore such a person. More importantly, are you tired?" His concern made me smile, and I made a fist to show my determination and said, "This is nothing compared to when I used to make deliveries. How about you? Are you tired?" "I'm fine too. I'm sorry for all the trouble I've caused you." He murmured apologetically, though it was hard to hear. Following my husband as he resumed walking, I couldn't help but laugh, momentarily forgetting our current situation. Pretending to speak to myself, I began recounting past events to my husband, who led the way. I talked about the times shortly after we were married when I helped with deliveries, the birth of our eldest son, and when he brought home Karen, announcing their marriage. My husband walked in silence but seemed to be listening. Suddenly stopping, my husband turned to face me. "If you take this wide road, it'll be a longer route, but the path is flat. If you take this narrow path, it'll be somewhat rugged, but you'll get there faster." "I'm taking the narrow path, what about you?" Touched by my husband's concern, I smiled slyly and quickened my pace to catch up to him. As I passed him, I quipped, "You're asking someone who's crossed mountains for years? Come on, Ryan must be worried. Let's hurry up." With that, I took the lead. Continuing on together, my husband and I eventually emerged into a quiet residential area. Among them, we could see brand new houses. We had finally arrived at our destination. Getting my phone back from my husband, I saw numerous missed calls from Karen but ignored them to check the time. Just as my husband had said, the journey that would normally take over 3 hours was shortened. Feeling the final stretch of effort, I walked with determination until we reached Ryan and Karen's new home. Their car was parked in the garage. As I rang the doorbell, I heard frantic footsteps from inside, and the door swung open energetically. Ryan, looking pale, welcomed us in first. Taking up his offer, we were led to the living room sofa where we could finally relax. Rubbing my tired legs and looking around, I could see that the house was solidly built and impressive. Feeling proud, I took a moment to admire the surroundings, and then Ryan came over, offering us cold drinks. "Mom, Dad, I was shocked to hear you were walking all the way to our house. Are you okay? You must be tired, so please stay the night here." Facing Ryan, who looked at us with concern, my husband sharply responded, "No, we'll leave once we've settled down. We don't want to stay in a house with such an awful person like Karen." Hearing this, Ryan looked around in surprise, searching for his wife's presence. But she was nowhere to be found, and he hurried upstairs. For a while, there was a commotion coming from upstairs, but eventually, it seemed Karen had resigned herself to the situation and came downstairs with Ryan. When he seated her beside him, Karen looked down, avoiding eye contact with us. Ryan questioned the meaning behind my husband's words. My husband, with a bitter expression, yelled at Karen, "You've been deceiving us all this time. I thought you were a somewhat clumsy but charming daughter-in-law. But it turns out you've been causing all sorts of trouble for Sarah." Trembling at my husband's angry voice, Karen shrank in her seat, remaining silent. Ryan tried to intervene and calm my husband, but he wouldn't stop. "When you two were building this house, I admired your resolve to manage on your own. Yet, in the end, you ended up siphoning money from Sarah. What were you thinking?" Hearing this, even Ryan stopped trying to intervene and looked at Karen. I tried to soothe my husband and asked him to sit on the sofa, and I told the same to my son. While addressing Karen, who wouldn't even look my way, I let out all my feelings. "Karen, the money doesn't matter. I wanted to help you two build your home. But it's the attitude that it's taken for granted that's unacceptable." It made me angry. Even as I spoke, Karen didn't lift her face. Ryan, not understanding, kept looking back and forth between Karen and me. Do you know why I gave you the money even though I didn't have to? Karen shook her head in response to my question. It's because I didn't want to burden Ryan. He was trying to handle everything on his own to not impose on us. And he would feel guilty if he knew the money came from me. So I said it was from you, not for your sake. As I spoke more forcefully, Karen, who had always looked down on me, finally lowered her shoulders and started crying. Satisfied that I had said all I wanted to say, I sat back down on the sofa and rubbed my legs. Then, Ryan, trying to grasp the situation, asked me. Wait, Mom. Did you pay for half of this house? Yes, I replied. And Karen made you do it? Yes. Ryan, holding his head in dismay, turned back to Karen, who was crying beside him. What have you done? We agreed we didn't want to burden our parents and would handle it ourselves. You said we had enough savings. My husband added fuel to the fire, accusing Karen further. This good-for-nothing daughter-in-law has been harassing Sarah behind our backs. She messed up the kitchen during the New Year visit as a form of harassment, and today, she made us walk on purpose. Claiming she doesn't give rides to strangers. Karen. Ryan stood up reflexively and scolded Karen strongly. I'm sorry. It's just that I was lonely because you're always busy with work. And I was jealous that you were always caring for your father and mother. Karen jumped off the sofa, crying and apologizing. But my husband, undeterred, grew even angrier. Why did you target Sarah then? Since he cared for me too, why doesn't it show towards me as well? Well, that's because. Perhaps because my husband had a strict look, despite his age. Karen might have thought she'd be scolded if she talked back. Unable to say anything, Karen faced another onslaught from my husband. What about the finances for this house? Why tell only Sarah and not me? Even if you found it hard to talk to me? Calling someone trying to lend you money a penny pincher is rude, isn't it? Hearing this, Ryan looked up sharply at Karen. Seeing Karen silently biting her lip, Ryan confirmed in a trembling voice. Karen. You made Mom give you the money, and even said that to her. Resigned to her fate, Karen nodded repeatedly, tears streaming down her face. Feeling guilty for being unaware, Ryan slumped down on the sofa, holding his head. Disappointed by Ryan and yelled at by my husband, Karen kept apologizing. When my husband demanded the money back, Karen shook her head. I have no savings left, please forgive me. Saying that, Karen pulled a box from under the TV stand in the living room, took out a bank statement from it, and showed its contents. The balance recorded was only a few dollars. Seeing this, my husband is pressing Ryan to consider divorce. You are right, calling my mom, who has always looked after us, a stranger. Anyone who does that is truly a stranger to me. Hearing this, Karen clung to Ryan, wailing and begging him not to divorce her. Nobody could handle Karen after that, and Ryan drove my husband and I to the station. And Ryan said that he began the process of divorcing his wife right away. Ryan explained everything to Karen's parent, and they called me to apologize sincerely, as a proper action from the parents. They even sent me compensation through Ryan. With such honorable parents, it's puzzling how Karen turned out the way she did. As expected, Karen was expelled from the new home and is now reportedly living with her parents. Karen pleaded and cried, but Ryan remained unforgiving, and they are still in the midst of divorce proceedings, even after some time has passed. As for us, we're considering moving from our old house to the clean, new home that's now free of Karen's belongings. Since there's still a considerable mortgage remaining and it wouldn't make sense to demolish the newly built home. Ryan offered for us to live together. Initially, my husband was reluctant for various reasons, but eventually, he gave in to Ryan's persistence. And then, we had settled into Ryan's new home. While Ryan was out at work, we were leisurely sipping tea in the living room. In this quiet residential area, the only sounds were the chirping of birds. During this peaceful time, I decided to ask my husband about our walk at that time. Why did you know the way so well? My husband replied, I used to make deliveries around here back in the day. It's practically my backyard. Seeing him so proud made me laugh. It looks like we'll be spending happy days ahead as a family of 3.